I would like to start today's webinar with three fundamental questions. Are you living in a country which is impacted by coronavirus, or do you want to know how administration is fighting this crisis? And three, are tech companies really helping us or the administration in the current crisis? If your answer is yes to any one of these questions, then this webinar is for you. Do not miss next 60 to 90 minutes. With this, I welcome you all to our live webinar on the topic, how technology is helping administration in fighting current COVID crisis. My name is Vikram Gupta. I'm the founder and CEO of Merit Road, an edutech startup supported by Amity. I shall be moderating today's webinar, which is officially sponsored by Impressico Business Solutions, a global technology company which has helped many international brands such as NFL, Verizon Wireless, Hitachi in their digital transformation work. It continues to make a strong impact in the world of IT consulting through its strong technology team and great work culture. Now, before I introduce my distinguished guest speakers for tonight, let me share a few facts to the audience. We know that the entire world is going through a difficult situation due to coronavirus crisis. It has impacted the lives and livelihoods of millions of people across the globe. It has shaken the healthcare system and economy of innumerable developed and emerging countries on the planet. And just a couple of weeks back only, World Health Organization indicated that coronavirus pandemic could be an endemic in future, just like malaria and smallpox. In other words, it would stay with us for many more years to come, even though we may have vaccines in place. Now, this is a very alarming state, and hence we all might have this question: what is administration really doing under this crisis, and what is the role of technology? Right? To answer these questions and discuss this topic further, I would like to welcome my first distinguished guest speaker for today, Mr. Gaurav Padhyay. He is an IPS officer of 2012 batch and presently serving as Assistant Inspector General of Police Logistics. He is a member of State Level Task Force of Assam and facilitating interstate and intra-state migration of stranded people in and outside of the state of Assam. He is also actively looking into all logistical arrangements to enable police force in fighting COVID-19. Also working in cross-functional teams of health, disaster management, and transport departments to come up with strategies and solutions to handle emerging situations. It goes without saying with this introduction that Mr. Gaurav's insight in today's webinar will be unparalleled and invaluable. With this short introduction, I would now welcome Mr. Gaurav Padhyay to the audience. Hello, Mr. Gaurav. Welcome to the webinar.
Hello, Mr. Vikram. Thank you for such kind words. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I welcome you to the audience. And before I introduce my next speaker, do you want to briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. So I think you have basically introduced my present role in the Assam government. So when this COVID-19 strategy struck, that is when the entire administration got together, and then a state level empowered committee was formed under the leadership of Honorable Chief Secretary. Subsequently, state nodal officers were appointed, and I was co-opted as one of the members of the team who is looking after the entire COVID-19 pandemic handling from the Assam administration side. And as you also mentioned, the logistical part of it, we are also looking at various technical solutions that can help us mitigate this crisis and how most efficiently and effectively we can move lakhs of people across the borders without endangering them of this infection, and how we do the quarantine management and tracking of all these people. So a lot of exercises is going on from Assam administration side. And as you have rightly mentioned, and as the topic is also extremely relevant, without technology as a force multiplier, this huge exercise would not have been possible. And that is how we are dealing with this emerging situation on a daily basis.
Thank you, Mr. Gaurav. Now, I would like to welcome my second guest speaker for today, Mr. Suraj Handa. He is the country lead for Globekeeper, an IT company, which recently helped Israel government in fighting COVID crisis through their technology solution. They continue to make a significant impact to the world through their virtual command platform, which offers military-grade security and encryption in civilian communication devices. I strongly believe that Mr. Suraj's input in today's webinar will help people understand the contribution of technology in current crisis. Especially for techies, it will help them to understand the real use cases of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Over to you, Mr. Suraj. I would now request you to briefly introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Hi, I'm representing a tech startup, 2014 tech startup called Globekeeper, which is based out in Israel. Globekeeper recently helped Ministry of Health in Israel to set up a mobile application which they call Hemgen. Hemgen is a very successful exercise in Israel, which has helped the administration in identifying the epidemiological spread of COVID-19 in the country. As you know, Israel is about 88 lakh people. The population of country is about 88 lakh people, and the number of positive cases in Israel, despite of very heavy testing, is limited to 17,000. So we certainly believe that our solution has helped the government to a very large extent in flattening the curve. What is the solution? How did we work with the government? How did all of this happen? I will explain in later in this webinar.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Suraj, for that note. So, Mr. Gaurav, I will first ask a couple of questions to you, and then I'll move on to Mr. Suraj, and then this is how we'll continue. So, Mr. Gaurav, my first question goes to you. When the COVID crisis started in sometime in March 2020, the state of Assam was already going through a lot of other problems such as protest of NRC, CA. So what were the challenges that administration was facing in fighting both the problems at the same point of time? And do you think in the history or in the past, did the state ever face such two big problems at the same point of time?
Well, you're right. The end part of 2019 was challenging for the administration and specifically for the police forces because of this anti-CAA protests, which had spontaneously emerged across the state of Assam. And it took a lot of effort and a lot of professional approach towards the problem, which ultimately allowed the police to handle the situation. Before that, there was the issue of NRC. And then likewise, this is how the governments are, and this is how the administrations are. They keep on facing multiple challenges during their course of the journey. So to answer your question, whether Assam has faced it or not, Assam has been facing a lot of similar situations and has been very effectively handling all of them and emerging out of each one of them very successfully. So that is how the CA problem was also handled without much problem in Assam. If you look at the records, I think Assam contained the anti-CA protests in a much better manner than in many other states where things slightly went offhand, but still got contained. Assam rose to the occasion pretty fast and subsequently managed to handle it. But you're right, the moment with the dust of that storm was settling, this new unprecedented crisis emerged. And then the administration was in flow. And I would also like to mention one thing. I think this NTCAA program has helped Assam in handling COVID also, because that time when the CA protests were happening, that is the peak tourism season for Assam. And because of these protests, there was some lesser amount of traffic in the tourist circuit of Assam. Now, since the flow of passengers was not much, uh, if the passengers would have carried COVID, say the foreign nationals who visit Kaziranga National Park and stuff like that, then I think the situation would have been slightly different. So there is a silver lining in the problem also, I think, which allowed Assam to steer out of COVID very successfully till March, till the time the second wave of infection started spreading. So, yeah, two major challenges back to back. But as I said, Assam has faced Assam Andolan, Operation Bajrang, Operation the insurgency problems. So the administration is quite geared up to handle these kind of challenges simultaneously.
Right, right. But just a question. In such situation, is it like the police force is divided into two teams, wherein one probably was taking care of anti-CA protest, or the second team was taking care of, say, tackling COVID crisis, or how does it work? Or was it like it was everybody's primary responsibility to take care of both the crises?
No. So the moment COVID crisis started taking the shape that it took subsequently, it's the lockdown kind of things started, and that took over all the entire problems which were around. So once the lockdown stepped in, the protesters, everything went inside, and then the entire responsibility of the police law enforcement forces was to enforce the lockdown with the spirit with which it was enforced, so that the community spread is mitigated. So I will not say that the same forces were dealing with two problems simultaneously. Initially, it was NTCA protest. When it subsided, after that, the COVID thing started. And as I said, there was inertia in the forces. They rose to the occasion, and they very seamlessly shifted towards the new challenge at their hands.
Okay, so good to hear that, while we kind of transited from one problem, although there was another problem in the making, but they didn't come all together. Now, since you mentioned about the lockdown, my next question to you is, when did the administration realize that they need technology to solve COVID crisis? Was it like before the lockdown, or like in what phase of lockdown did administration realize technology, they need to fall back on technology?
So, Mr. Vikram, I hope you would remember how this entire crisis unfolded. It all started with our Honorable Prime Minister's appeal to have a contained Holi celebrations. That was kind of setting the tone for what was about to come. Then it was followed by Janta Curfew on 22nd of May, sometime around that time. And we got the inkling that as many places had started locking down, we could foresee the challenge coming through. There were notifications and circulars asking offices to reduce the workforces, to ask all the not very essential departments to start working from home. That is when we realized that now is the time when technology has to step in, so that the continuity of the business is ensured. At the same time, the social distancing and the other norms are also followed. So it all started when the lockdown was in force. Till that time, we had our collaborative workplace kind of system in place, wherein we had WebEx sessions or Zoom sessions, so that we can collaborate remotely also. And we also realized that it will be very important to engage with the people in a very positive manner, even to the remotest corner of the family. So that there are no apprehensions, no rumors, no uneasy feeling or anxiety, which might subsequently translate into any sort of law and order situation. So we immediately started using our social media platform very aggressively. Our BDGP administration under our Honorable DGP handled our social media platform really well. It gave very clear, unambiguous messaging to the people as to what is expected out of them, how administration is standing by them in this time of crisis, what all circulars and guidelines are there which they have to follow. And likewise, a lot of clear communication and messaging started happening through social media platforms, which immediately allayed any sort of fears which would have in the minds of people. And subsequently, other phases of technology also started, taking place, meeting the requirements of the dynamically changing situations for administration. So to answer your question specifically, it started with a collaborative workforce solutions, and also direct engagement with the last citizen, and also the last constable or homeguard who was standing enforcing these kind of directions which the authorities were given. So that was the start of technology acting as a force multiplier.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So now, given that okay, administration understood that probably they will have to fall back on technology because probably that's the best solution. That's the best scalable solution we had. But now, help me understand what were the initial apprehensions, or if I can take the word fear in the minds of administration when they were adopting technology. Was there some initial, fear like, oh, if they would go with technology, then probably it might not work?
Well, yeah, in fact, government organizations, they are pretty efficient and have been working so long for us. But one thing we have to admit, they are not very adaptive to adopting any new technology. We were thinking that suppose we start any remote collaborating technology platforms like WebEx or Zoom, what happens to, say, a sub-inspector who is about to get retired, who is not technically very sound? Will he be able to cope with this kind of situation? So we ensured that there are educational tutorials and videos, online training sessions, so that they also, come to terms with what the new technology is and how to use it effectively. And to my utter surprise, it was so fast and so seamless. Even high school pass, homeguard or constable was able to use the technical solutions that we were presenting. So, for example, a small solution which we started to trace passengers who are deboarding from flight. We initiated a QR code based system so that we don't have to escort the passengers to the screening center. At the same time, the passengers don't stray away and don't report at the screening centers, thereby leading to any kind of confusion. Now, these are scanning kind of applications which we developed. We just had a small 40-minute Zoom meeting with all the earmarked constables. And after that, the system has been working very effectively and efficiently. So there were apprehensions about the adaptability part of it, but to our very pleasant surprise, did not become a roadblock, and things fell in place.
Wow, it's great to hear that because, as opposite to a common perception, it is, it is wrongly assumed by most of us that, things go a bit slow in administration when it comes to acceptance, adoption, or integration of technology. And it is really enlightening to hear that, uh, it was super fast, in this situation. And that's how I think we all have to be, because we need to adapt as quickly as possible. Great, Mr. Gaurav. I will now move on my next set of questions for Mr. Suraj. So, Mr. Suraj, can you briefly share a few details about Globekeeper, and then I will, come with more questions?
So Globekeeper is an Israel-based startup. We started in 2014. It was founded by ex-IDF, Israel Defense Forces personnel. So my founder was in the elite communication unit of the IDF. Israel, as you know, it is a very enterprising country in terms of homeland defense and security is concerned. So our startup was aimed at providing some cutting edge communication technology to police department at a very low cost, or at a very easy implementation practically, where we don't require any extra hardware intervention. So we came up with our virtual command platform that is it practically enables any civilian communications, as in it is a platform which can collaborate your command center with the police forces on ground. Any kind of incidents reporting can be done on this platform, and it reduces the turnaround time for the police forces or the security forces drastically. over and above, when this COVID-19 thing started, we were approached by the Health Ministry of Israel to develop a solution to develop a technical solution to combat this crisis. As you know, crisis management and technology cannot be thought of separately in now technological intervention. So, based on our platform, we were already doing a lot of. Our system already had this digital handshake or what you call contact tracing kind of a DNA into it. So we quickly implemented it for the health ministry in Israel. So this application over there is called Hamgen. It was among the very first applications worldwide to be used for contact tracing. So now contact tracing, this may be a very unfamiliar kind of a word for the audience. So I'll just quickly tell you what does this application do. So this application basically works on mass data validation. So it is very necessary for this application to be successful. It is very necessary that it is downloaded in masses, as in similar to what Arogya Setu is. The basis of this application is mass community download. So if you would allow me to share my screen, may I?
Sorry, Mr. Suraj, that may not be possible. We have disabled it
Okay.
for the request of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this application gives the accurate analysis of your interactions with people in past whatever is required, 14 days, 30 days. So in a nutshell, you download this application, you move around, and if you have crossed a path with someone who later came out to be COVID positive, it gives you a X person you interacted in the past is COVID positive. So it's time for you to get self-quarantined or time for you to get tested. So this kind of an application helped the administration in early detection of hotspots, early detection of areas wherein it would have spread on a wide scale, and preventing it from converting into a community download. So in a nutshell, this is the application. It is running very successfully in Israel and a couple of more countries, which is being managed by us. India has its own Arogya Setu. Gaurav sir would be in a better position to tell us more about it.
Sure, sure. So, Mr. Suraj, if I understood correctly, first of all, the solution that you provided to Israel government, it is essentially a mobile app.
Application.
It is a mobile application wherein user can install on their mobile, and which means it doesn't require any additional device, so as to speak, right?
Right.
Right. And will it be fair to say that it will only work on smartphones, not on feature phones or others? And if yes, then how do we tackle that situation where people may not have a smartphone?
Apparently, COVID was earlier looked at as a urban man's disease. It was looked at a very urban pandemic. So this solution, as you said, very well started only for smartphones. It was available. It is available on iOS and Android. Later, for country, we have a very good customer base in South Africa. So we also tried bringing this application to India. For markets like these, we later developed an IoT-based solution wherein we don't require any kind of smartphone for this application to work. It involved a bit of cell tower triangulation, and local discovery, tag-based local discovery. So essentially, to answer your question, this solution is designed for users of smartphone as well as feature phone, available now on both the formats.
Right, right. Great. Now, as you mentioned that, we all know, not just that you mentioned, like, so Israel government is very sensitive as far as surveillance is concerned. And I'm sure it wouldn't have been easy for any company to work on such a huge project for them. Uh, can you tell me briefly, like, what were the initial challenges that you or your organization faced, um, uh, while working with administration in Israel government?
Yes. See, initially before the Hamgen came in place, Israel government started contract tracing for discovery of COVID-19 possible cases as early as February 2019, 2020, sorry.
Mhm.
So the earlier method of tracing was a anti-terror technology which was used by the Israel Shin Bet, that is the Israel Homeland Security Agency, and it required essentially it was a very intrusive way of testing. So the government of the High Court of Israel kind of gave us 14 days window to government of Israel to face this intrusive method out and bring in a non-intrusive application. So at that time, a lot of solutions were worked upon. It was an open hackathon, which open techthon, which was organized in Tel Aviv. So we participated in this hackathon, and our solution was readily accepted as we had I mean, good. The company had good credentials. We had good success stories with our existing applications, so the application was very well accepted. I will tell you, Vikramji, this is a completely GDPR compliant solution we offer.
Mhm.
All of the user data never leaves the user phone. The data is staying on devices. Only if someone is infected, the his travel history, his intersection routes is being broadcasted to the network through our servers in a very discreet and encrypted manner. So essentially, you will know that you have crossed paths with someone who has been COVID positive, but no user from the community will ever know who the person was. It is only for the administration to know who has been infected with COVID in order to take appropriate measures.
Great, great. So, I mean, this is great to hear that. Um, yeah, Mr. Solid. I mean, it is really great to hear that the data is still with the device, with the client. It was not shared with the server until there was a need, like, because this might allay all the privacy concerns which any potential user might have. Because we did see a lot of, I
I'm
would say
losing
a
you.
lot.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I lost you for past half a minute.
Yeah. So I'm saying, okay, I'll repeat. So I'm saying the kind of solution that you provided, right, wherein the data of the user would stay in the device with the device, would not go to the server unless it is needed. It's an absolutely brilliant solution, because then it would just allay all the privacy concerns which a
Exactly.
person might have, right? So
Exactly.
great to hear that. Uh,
Yes.
Mhm. Now, the other question is like how does journey start? You mentioned that it was a hackathon event in which you participated, you had a solution, but before that, I from what I know is like you had some you had worked with other governments like Africa and all. Do you want to add
Exactly.
that a bit
Exactly.
very briefly?
See, the genesis of this application is somewhat based on. I mean, it relates. It has somewhat blockchain DNA. So we have a solution which is enforced in South Africa, which is called Buzzer. Buzzer is a community safety application which empowers law enforcement at a very, I mean, I should rather say which is an application which empowers the law enforcement agencies to be very proactive, swift, and it helps very largely on crime prevention. So how does this application work? It is again a mass download application. it has a very simple UI. Some selective options it has. You can report any incidents which is happening, and this information goes to the nearest police station, to the nearest security post, and in the community itself, and to the fellow volunteers of the community. So whoever is easiest to access you, and your location is being broadcasted to respective stakeholders. So whoever is nearest to you can respond to you, or is supposed to respond to you swiftly. So the turnaround time for help comes down drastically. So this application had some amount of contact tracing DNA into it. We were already we had already our hands on this kind of applications. Use of IoT sensors for this kind of applications. Use of the other sensors we have in our mobile phone, like GPS, low Bluetooth, Wi-Fi discovery, voice over data, cellular triangulation. So these are apparently sensors which are made for their which were intended to do, like Wi-Fi was intended to give you wireless internet. But later, when we found IoT, we used it for our own convenience. So all these sensors were collaborated and made to work in a manner wherein we have a very connected and private community which can come to each other's help on demand very quickly. So this had the DNA of contact tracing. For COVID-19, this was further developed and made more precise. That is what I want to say.
So, if I understood correctly, what you're saying is the essence of the tech solution that you provided to Israel government probably goes back to your solution that you provided to the administration in Africa, but
right.
It was at a very basic level,
exactly,
and it was definitely customized to meet the needs of crisis management.
It was heavily customized. Mm-hmm. Because one false reading can put the administration to havoc.
True.
So, for example, there is one event of false reading, and it is showing that it's showing that about 600 people have crossed their paths with a COVID infected. So it is it is an exercise totally gone wrong. True. So this application, though it had its DNA from buzzer, but it was altogether a very newly developed, a very sensitive and a very precise application.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think it will be a fair comparison to say that mobile was developed initially only for taking and taking calls, right, phone calls. But today, as we speak, like mobile phone is like the lifeline of this world. You talk about shopping, you talk about paying bills, you talk about anything, even Zoom conferencing right now, most of us are having on mobile. So
and even keeping us safe in COVID.
True. Yeah. All right. Great, Mr. Suresh. Thank you. I will now move on to Mr. Gaurav again. So, Mr. Gaurav, as you mentioned earlier, that the administration is fairly flexible and adaptive in terms of adopting technology in such crisis situation. But my question is, like, even in normal situation, is it the same? Is it the same in which administration works, or are they more stringent in terms of adopting a technology, or do they have a checklist which is more exhaustive to adopt a technology in normal situation instead of a crisis situation like COVID?
No. So use of technology is always encouraged. I'll not say that government departments are averse to it in any form. It's always encouraged, and that is why you see our government focusing on smart policing and trying to make law enforcement tech savvy, and all the other parts also for that matter. So, but this situation and normal situations are quite different. In this situation, the emergency is such that you have to adapt without having much deliberation about it. In normal situations, you would like to, revisit your workflow structures, revisit how things are happening, how you will translate them into a technical platform, and then go about it. So as we speak, in fact, Assam Police itself has endeavored into a lot of technical solutions. Right now, the entire police department is getting connected through video conferencing equipments at police station level, so that all the authorities and all the stakeholders can collaborate seamlessly. So the AP Connect project, as we call it, it's under execution right now. Similarly, the entire police department is now going on an ERP kind of solution, so that the personnel management, the logistics, financial management, the asset, all these parts are also taken care of technically. It makes governments more efficient. So the drive for adopting technology is always there. But in normal situations, the exercise is slightly more elaborate. It's more well thought out. It's more structured. But in this handling this kind of a dynamic crisis, for which you don't have any trainings, for which you don't have any SOPs already in place, which is not cut and right in its approach, here, the situation emerges dynamically, and you try to handle it on the moment with available technologies or start thinking of new processes. And what Suraj was mentioning, exactly. In fact, we also tried solutions for normal law enforcement, and then did a slight rejig to map it into the present solution. So that is how the administrations and technologies are. They are dynamic, they evolve, they fit into the jigsaw, and then the whole picture emerges. So that is how it has been all along.
Right, right. Uh, Now, okay, so this part is understood, administration, robotic technology, but how easy is it to for the people in the mid-level of administration or down the hierarchy to accept that technology? Like, and what are those challenges, and how do you deal with those challenges? Because I'm sure it won't be easy to just tell your entire force to adopt technology. I'm sure there must be a lot of inertia from your team, right?
Totally, that's a fair point to make. In fact, the resistance to adopt technology in normal situations is immense because people have got used to a certain way of working. They are into their comfort zones. You try and do some drastic changes, and then this resistance starts coming up. But when the message goes clearly to the formations that the adoption of this technology is for their own benefit. So I'll give you a small example. Suppose a set of passengers is deboarding from a flight or alighting from a train. Now they have to be taken to a particular quarantine center or a screening center to be checked for COVID positiveness. In a brute force method, it will be done by arranging vehicles in a queue of 15 to 20 vehicles. Then you place one police escort in the front, one police escort at the back, and then the entire convoy leaves the airport or the railway station to a quarantine center, because Assam is following a ruthless quarantine kind of a mechanism to contain this COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think of the person who is waiting for hours in outside a railway station or airlines. I'm talking about the police personnel, and all he has to do is carry a set of passengers from point A to point B. Now, suppose we introduce something keeping in mind the technical challenges that a constable level functionary would have, and come up with a smart solution which reduces this workload. So, for example, as I said, we did not go into any intrusive kind of technology like downloading any application to trace their locations. We just had a normal QR code based serial number coupon system. When the passenger is given a serial number at the time of his deboarding, he is allotted a set of time limit. For example, if he has to go from point A to point B, he should report at point B within 3 hours, which is a reasonable time for any passenger to undertake that journey. And once he reports to that screening center, again the same QR code is scanned and the loop gets completed. That yes, this person started from point A and he reached point B. Now this kind of a solution automatically reduced the escorting part of it. So now when the lower formations realize that this kind of a simplistic solution can make their lives easy, the factor of resistance immediately disappears. Then the incentive of adopting the technology or learning that becomes much higher. And that is how we have seen that the capacity of government departments to adopt any technology is immense. It's just that the messaging, its value proposition and how it is made their lives and the beneficiaries' lives easier. That messaging is clear, the training is clear, then I think adoption does not remain a problem. So once this crisis is over and we sit down and look back at what happened, a lot of positives will certainly come out. And one of them is going to be this, that government departments are very flexible. They can immediately adopt to any technological solution and make an efficient system which is working. So that will be a positive out of this crisis, which I feel becomes a
Right, right. Now, here's going to be a tricky question, Mr. Gaurav. You said government departments are fairly flexible in terms of adopting technology. Now, let's compare the acceptance of technology by a common person, right? So, which side do you feel is more flexible in terms of adopting technology? Is it the people in administration or the people in, a common person? And feel free to skip this question if you want to skip.
No. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I think people are much more fast in adopting technologies, and that is why you see the kind of technical revolution we are seeing right now. They are very tech-savvy people, the citizens whom we are serving, and they look forward to intelligent solutions which can cater to them. Uh, Also, let's not ignore the section of people who are not having smartphones, as there was a question from your side to Mr. Suraj, a feature phone kind of a public. But even for them, there are solutions which can integrate them into this technical scheme of things. So, with the demographic dividend that we have, the kind of demography that we have, the younger generations is maximum of our population. They are pretty tech savvy. The solutions are also coming out, and that is why you see a lot of aggregators like Swiggy or Ola, Uber, and everything that has been launched has seen success in India. So our citizens are amazing. They immediately adopt any new technology, and likewise the ecosystem of our service providers, like say Meritro, for example, your organization, or Impressico, who the smart service providers that we have, or say Globe Keepers, they keep up coming with new technologies. People start adopting it, and that is how things are moving in a much better manner. So, yeah, it's to answer your question. I think, of course, the citizens are more adapted as compared to a government department. But as I previously said, many things will change after this crisis, and you'll see how governments would have got used to using technology in handling big events and situations.
True, true. It's a big round of cheer for all the audience who are not in administration that we are more flexible in adopting technology. Great. Anyways, thank you, Mr. Gaurav, for that candid answer. Let me move on to now a slightly sensitive topic, which is Arogya Setu app. We know that this app was launched sometime in the mid of April 2020, and then sometime in the first week of May, this app was made mandatory for all public as well as private companies in India. However, after a few weeks again, it was made like not mandatory, but it was more like a more push. It was more of an advisory, not mandatory. However, uh, despite this advisory, we've seen that the number of infections in India has been growing at a phenomenal rate, right? It's like the numbers are increasing every day. Um, and it is a belief that probably the technology was not able to solve this problem. What is your opinion about it, Mr. Gaurav?
Right. So let's first think about the genesis of Arogya Setu. And I think it is exactly in the lines of what Globe Keepers was offering, which is contact tracing. Contact tracing means if any person has inadvertently come across someone who is a COVID positive, then he becomes a person of interest for the administration, whether he has also acquired the infection or not. And subsequently, you take mitigating steps so that he doesn't become a carrier for the virus. So that was the intention with which Arogya Setu was launched. Uh, it was effective during the lockdown because lockdown people were contained. If during slight relaxation or something, somebody would have come across someone and if the system would have popped up that kind of a result, the handling was easier. Now, once this interstate migration thing has started, in which people have now started moving a lot, Now I think the Arogya Setu app, if we try to look at it as something which will help stop the infection, then I think it's not a fair expectation from the application. Application was designed for a different purpose altogether. It was to just identify, suppose if you have gone to a particular marketplace, whether few minutes before that some positive person was there or not. It was more for a contained kind of an environment where lockdown was enforced. So now suppose a COVID positive person is traveling on a train. A person would have moved across bogies. All of a sudden, phone pop-up would come out to a lot of people who have come into his contact. Now, contact tracing is no longer a priority. Testing becomes a bigger part, and that is why you see a spurt in infections, as you said, that now we are seeing the numbers growing. It is precisely because people have started moving across the country. Every time a person enters any state's border, he is tested. So what has happened eventually is the testings have gone up dramatically. For example, take the case of Assam. We were less than 100 before this interstate migration started. Today we stand at around 2,500. The numbers are not like anything. All of them because of this interstate migration. The good part about it, all of them were in containment zones or quarantine centers. So all of them were within the box. So they did not enter the community so that they would have spread it further. But as the movements will continue and as the testings will continue, we will definitely see an increase in numbers. And these numbers are not directly related to this Arogya Setu kind of an application, which has an altogether different mandate to serve. It's not primarily to, just contain the numbers. It can only throw results, but now it's not as relevant as it was during the lockdown enforcement periods.
Okay. All right. All right. The other concerns that we've seen with Arogya Setu app is like there has been a lot of data privacy concerns, right? There was a developer from probably some part of Europe which was showing who demonstrated there's some vulnerability in with the app, and there have been a few concerns, as in this app is actually infringing on the rights to privacy. Do you think so? What is your opinion on these concerns? And B, what do you think administration could have done better to allay these concerns?
Right. So yeah, I also came across the criticism that Arogya Setu app had, but I think the problem of privacy issues is something which always a democracy like India keeps in mind. With the kind of vibrant democracy that we are in, assuming that governments will make any kind of an application which will be infringing on the rights of people, this is not a possibility, in my humble opinion. What would have happened is there would have been a bug which was discovered, and immediately it was rectified. So that's about it. And as far as the privacy concerns go, while you are handling this kind of an emergency kind of a situation, even the people are willing to let go of some of their rights, believing in the system and administration that they will not misuse it. So all we are trying to do is taking minimum possible information from the people so that we can help them mitigate risks that they are subjected to because of this crisis. So as far as actually GDPR compliance is not in Indian geography, Mr. Suraj, just correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
but at the same time, at the same time, we have very strict checks and balances in place. Be it the legislative, be it the executive, be it the fourth estate of our democracy. Any meddling with data will not be spared. So we live in that kind of a transparent democracy. So the criticism was there. I think it was there also because that is how systems are. You point out some, errors in it, you rectify it. And I think right now, Arogya Setu app is again a very robust kind of an application meant for a very genuine purpose. And there is no data security issue as such with this application.
Well, Mr. Gaurav, you mentioned about bugs, right? I've spent more than a half decades in IT industry. So bugs are essentially part of any IT solution. This was just an app that was developed in such a tight tight deadlines, timeline. So I think that was fairly expected. And as you rightly mentioned, that once we fix that bug, it's all gone. And I think in due course of time, just like any other app works, uh, like if you're talking about any machine learning solution, the more data you have, the better probability you come up with, right? So probably, I'm not really sure about the internal architecture of Arogya Setu app, but I'm just thinking if it is really working on machine learning concepts, the amount of data that gets collected through Arogya Setu app, again, ensuring that it is well within the legality framework and data privacy framework, this app might be getting even better in due course of time, and the results might even improve, right? But only time will tell. Great. Okay, I would now go back to Mr. Suraj. So, Mr. Suraj, we heard you saying that you provided tech solution to Israel administration in fighting COVID crisis, and in the past you worked with Africa and African administration as well. My question to you is, like, when you offer a tech solution like these, like which are unprecedented, right? How do you measure the success criteria of your solution? Like, let's go back to your solution to Israel administration, right? What was the success criteria that was defined? A, and B, uh, was your solution able to meet those success metrics? Or do we even know we have met those success metrics? Have you met those success criteria at all?
Certainly, yes. See, the intent of this application is early detection of hotspots. The basic intent of contact tracing application is early detection of hotspots and early detection of people who might later get tested into positive. So this application in India also, rather I would take it this way. Arogya Setu happens to be one of the most successful digital technological solution worldwide in combat with COVID-19. Similarly, if we talk about Israel, Amgen has been very successful. If you see the numbers, as I told earlier, 88.8 lakh is the population of the country, and the numbers are still sturdy at 17,000. So this application is a very, very potent device. It is rather, I would say, it is kind of a GPS for the administration. It gives the administration a clear indicative as in which part needs more of your attention. Anybody I don't believe that any country was prepared for such kind of pandemic. So it was new for everyone. Challenges were new, solutions were new. A new day, new story was there for everyone. So in this difficult times, these technical solutions have been acting like a GPS, giving a direction to the administration, giving a clear picture of where the hotspot might occur, who must have been, where the focus should go, which area should go test, which area should come under blanket testing, where we should not put our resources. Moreover, this kind of solution also gave very relevant and potent analytics for hospital and quarantine facility planning for the administration.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No country was ready for this kind of an pandemic. I grossly disagree if someone would say that their country had already had an existing infrastructure in place. Everyone did it like India. Everyone came up with innovative solutions. Like we converted our train bogies into
Mr. Suraj, I am missing you. I'm not sure if there's a network issue on your side. Mr. Suraj, can you?
Everywhere in all part of the world have been taken place, and use of this technology. Hello.
Go on.
So I was telling that this lockdown and this technology use of technology in flattening the curve, I don't think it is going in the wrong direction. It is going in the right direction. It is delivering its basic expectations to the administration. And in India also, I don't think we are in a very bad situation. We are in a good situation. The administration is working day in, day out in controlling this pandemic. We are 1.3 billion people, one among the most densely populated countries. We have, I mean, I, it is just unbelievable to see such good numbers. I would rather say we are in a very good situation. The administration has worked very hard. I'm day in day out interacting with people in administration. It is a very good job technology and our field force doing together to curb this pandemic.
Right, right. Mr. Suresh, let me add one more question here. We talked about the success criteria that we possibly had with Israel government when you were dealing, when you offered the solution. Were we having any tangible numbers to measure the success criteria? Or given that the situation was unprecedented, we didn't even know what is the success criteria, and it was more like, okay, we're going to learn along the way. We're going to see, you know, we're going to see situations. We will see what dynamics comes along the way, and then we'll see whether we're successful or not. Let me rephrase the question. Basically, what was the success criteria? Was it in numbers, or was it more abstract, or was it more subjective?
See, it was not very definitive. The intention was to bring down the curve. The intention was to have a tool which helps in better administration, better implementation of the law. To see the numbers, 17,000 by 88 lakh, it comes down to 0.0019%. So it is already a overwhelming number. So I think this math is enough to call this exercise successful.
True, true. Point taken, point taken. I probably missed out on those numbers in your initial this thing. The other thing is the mobile app solution which you offered to the Israel administration. Does it work in isolation, or it works in tandem with other apps such as Google Maps, or any third party app?
Our offering happens to be a very unique one. So far, ours is the only application which has an ability to go in history, as in if a user comes new to our platform and he is installing the application through Facebook and Google logins, our application can go up to 45 days in the history, 45 days in the past history. So though the application works in isolation, but for past data retrieval, it requires a Google login and Facebook login.
Oh, are you saying that the app goes to the historical timelines of the user?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it is a very essential feature. Someone who is if someone is diagnosed, someone is identified COVID positive, and he is not having an application, and he is made to download the application by the administration now, the entire exercise is irrelevant if we don't know where is he coming from. So this application, our application has a feature on download. It asks you to enter your login through Facebook and login through Google with the help of Google timeline and Facebook time. It gives you a route map. This feature really it gives a ready map in hand. Like this was the the route map of the person. So the cross interactions can be identified really very quick.
Great. All right. Okay, so now I will move back to Mr. Gaurav. And again, here is another tricky question. Given that for last 60 minutes we've been discussing, how technology probably helped administration in fighting current crisis. My question to you, Mr. Gaurav, is that do you really believe that given the current situation and wherever we are right now, good, bad, better, do you think technology has really helped administration in getting expected results in the current crisis?
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, had it not been for technology, we would have been in a much bad shape. Technology has been the essence, right from, if you see, not just for the police or law enforcement, for other parts of administration, even for the medical fraternity also. I think it is the technology which is holding everything together. And that is why even for talking about vaccine development, the speed at which they have reached to a level where they are right now, or talking about, say, the financial systems, wherein governments have been able to help people who are in distress with financial help. All these things have a technical backbone on which everything is functioning. So technology, I think, is the single most important unifying factor in the entire exercise which different departments are doing in order to fight this crisis. So yes, technology has been instrumental in uh, mitigating the risks which otherwise would have been much huge. Just imagine, now we have to, all of a sudden we are faced with a situation where we have to evaluate how many people of state of Assam are stranded in remaining states of India. Now, if not by technology, how else can you try to
Sure.
find that?
Mhm.
Secondly, suppose you, so the normal process, you start getting registrations. What Assam did was, we started asking people to give a missed call on a particular number. Now, giving a missed call is a simple process for any person with any level of technical readiness. He just has to give a missed call. Now, that populates our database. Based on the geography and the other parameters, we can actually find out who is where. Next level comes the intelligence that we put in while taking the registration of the people. Because suppose somebody is stranded who is a employee or a person who is engaged in any economic activity, he will have his own setup in his place of where he's stuck. But suppose somebody who isn't, or somebody who is a tourist, or somebody who is a pilgrim, he would have gone for his very short visit without having an inkling about lockdown, which is coming after a few days. These were the people who were actually stranded. So how do you prioritize as to, with the limited resources at the hand of any government, not just Indian government, if you have to start bringing people back, how do you prioritize? That is again possible only with the use of technology. When you make categories in your forms and ask people to fill their category of citizenship as to not citizenship, the category of people who are stranded, students, pilgrims, tourists, patients, they then you can manage your exercise in a much better manner. You can actually provide relief to people in a manner which can help them in a much better way. For example,
Sure.
cancer patients were brought through flights, migrant workers, stomach specials are running, few people are have taken the road journeys. This all was possible only by the use of technology. Now also try to, I'm sure many of our audience doesn't know how Shramik special trains are running,
Mhm.
because it's not an online IRCTC kind of a booking. What is the passenger manifest? How does government arrive at who is going to board which Shramik train? A
Mhm.
huge technological exercise is behind all the Shramik special trains. So there is a close coordination between the two states, the origin state and the destination state.
Mhm.
Of course, railways is a very important stakeholder.
Mhm.
Then you, based on the registrations that you have received on your technological platform, you arrive at the set of 1600 passengers, the capacity of the train. So that is what government applies its intelligence in terms of priorities, in terms of urgency. Then they send it to the origin state. Kindly send these people in the first train, because not all can accommodate in a single train. So of course it has to be staggered. So
True.
that is how you arrive at a passenger list. Now, suppose you have identified 1,600 people who
Mhm.
have to board a Shramik special. How do these 1,600 people come to know that they have to board this train? Again, it's only technology. You start sending bulk SMSs, you start sending advisories to a lot of technical platforms, which is available in the hand of a migrant worker. Otherwise, there is no other way.
True.
And then you start having a call center kind of a setup where suppose a person is not able to receive a SMS, then you have to make a call to him. And once the entire set of passengers come to your state, then they again have to be sent to the last mile. So, for example, Karnataka is sending 1,600 passengers to Assam.
Mhm.
Assam government will be very interested to know out of these 1,600, which set of people will go to which district.
Mhm.
Now that you again do a lot of technical intervention. Once that is done, then the administration sets up the transportation for last mile. You build the capacity for the screening and quarantining. So what comes across as a seamless exercise going on since last 1.5 months is consuming immense amount of bandwidth of all the government agencies, and it is being possible without any flaw or error that this movement is happening across India.
True.
Only because technology is playing its part and technology is enabling the governments and administrators to run the show like this.
True.
So technology has been instrumental.
True. True. And it is really enlightening for all of us to realize and understand that it takes a lot, uh, even for the administration, no matter how much technology support they have, to coordinate, um, say, stranded people in migrating them from one place to another. It needs a good amount of manual intervention, manual resources, even though we have a lot of technology in place, right? I think that's what Gaurav, Mr. Gaurav, you're trying to highlight that both technology as well as manpower, they are working together at their peak level and bandwidth
Absolutely.
so as to ensure nearly 100% efficiency in the system, right?
Absolutely. When I mentioned how technology is helping, I in no ways meant that there is no human intervention. In fact, human intervention is 80 to 90%.
Mm-hmm.
Once this kind of exercise is going, think of the constables who are enforcing, think about the drivers, the handymen who are transporting people, think about the health workers who are screening them, think about the cleaning staff which is dealing with quarantines. Human intervention is immense. Technology is enabling us to build more intelligence and more efficiency to the whole exercise. But without the human spirit and the enterprise that they have, this exercise otherwise would have been pretty disastrous. Just imagine a train load of people showing up at your railway station unnoticed. 1,600 passengers and you are not prepared for them. That will be chaos. How do you uh, arrange for their stay, their footing, their quarantining, everything? So the accuracy that is required is at the top level.
Mm-hmm.
Human intervention is, of course, the spirit of the whole exercise.
True.
Technology is just driving the whole force. And that is why I've always said that technology has been a force multiplier.
True.
It is a strong force multiplier, but the human endeavor, of course, is immense.
True. True. Can't agree more on that. Truly. And Mr. Gaurav, like, uh, let's say people, a common person who is not part of the administration or government. Let's talk about a student or an IT professional or any person, right, who's not part of administration. If he wants to contribute uh, to the Assam administration in form of suggesting any creative ideas, basically how to tackle the situation. Maybe there's a startup which wants to come up with some innovative solution which might help the administration in fighting this crisis. Uh, if there are such people and startups or companies, uh, what they should do to reach out to Assam administration? Is there a mailbox where they should email, or is there a helpline number? Basically, what should they do to reach out to the administration so they get accepted and the solution reaches to the masses?
Sure, I think the administration is very receptive to any new ideas which can help us do the exercise better.
Mhm.
And that is why a lot of committees and a lot of steering groups and empowered committees have been formed. So if, for example, any of our citizens want to contribute in terms of suggesting something, they can always drop in an email to state nodal officer assam@gmail.com. That is a dedicated email created for the state nodal officers, where all the correspondences happen and they are reviewed at the top level. And therefore, that is one email ID. And also, I would like to highlight one more point, that when people were stranded because of lockdown, we had a project what we call as Assam Cares, in which we thought of reaching out to the margin, poor, destitute, and distressed people, and provide them financial assistance. Now, in order to do this exercise, I'm glad to say 800 volunteers, all housewives, students, they were remotely working as a call center operators. That is the amazing, and that everything pro bono, everything without
Mhm.
any financial consideration.
Mhm.
These stories have to come out, and I'm sure they will subsequently come out. That the human spirit which was exhibited during this crisis, it's very heartwarming, and therefore the contribution of general public in administration, we already have it. And from an advisory or a suggestive point of view, if anybody wants to suggest something, then the email ID which I've shared is available. They're most welcome to drop in, and we'll be more happy, very happy to accept them if they're helping us do our thing better.
Sure. So I'll repeat for the interest of audience that if you have any suggestions to help Assam administration, please drop email to state nodal officer assam@gmail.com. Is that right, Mr. Gaurav?
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, state nodal officer assam@gmail.com. Please send your solutions as a volunteer. And as Mr. Gaurav mentioned, that the administration is quite receptive in taking these solutions forward. Uh, all right. Going back to Mr. Suraj. So, Mr. Suraj, you know, it's great to hear that a startup so early stage has done a humongous amount of contribution to the society. Uh, but what is the current stage of the company where we are today? And looking back, is there anything we could have done better as an organization?
There are always certain things which could have been done better. So far we are very strongly supporting government of Israel with the Hampton application. We also have Europolis as one of our most premier clients. Also, we are working with couple of police departments in India. We are in the pre-qualification stages. We are just carrying out our POCs. So yes, as an organization, we are small, swift, and agile. Technologically, we are very strong. That was the reason that Israel, despite of having very big companies in cybersecurity and uh, uh, technology, we were given this opportunity to present our skills in form of the Hamden application, which is already very successful in Israel, as the number shows. So this is where we are.
True, true. Can't agree more on that. Like people, all the Indian IT professionals, they have made a significant impact to the entire world right now. And this is what I mentioned in my previous webinar also, that we, when I say we, when IT professionals in India, whether they're India or abroad, they will continue to make a significant impact to all the technical innovations and creations across the globe. So, Mr. Suraj, what's the plan ahead? Given that we are where we are, what is the plan for, let's say, next couple of years as an organization?
See, I would personally and as a company, we would like to see beyond COVID.
Mm-hmm.
COVID is going to stay. But as an individual, what I think is that if this may not be a new world order, it is start of a post-COVID world. So there are certainly there are going to be some prominent demographic changes which may happen. So I would rather look at as an opportunity to tweak our services and products towards a post-COVID world, and focus more on our core, that is command center for police and law enforcement. We are also very strongly working on the enterprise version of our contact tracing application, SAFE. So we have just rolled out an application which we call Safe Enterprise. It is aimed towards manufacturing companies and companies who are more people centric, where uh, social distancing cannot be practiced very efficiently as norm of the industry. As in, for there is if we consider manufacturing enterprise, and if there is a machine which requires a lot of human intervention, so it is practically possible for a machine to run without 6 operators. If it requires 6 operators at 1 meter distance, it requires 6 operators. You cannot operate it without them. You cannot operate the machines without them. So for industries which are more people centric, and uh, uh, they cannot comply to social distancing norms, we have to get back to life, we have to get back to business. So we just came up with this application, which is a which is a small version of this contact tracing application. Rather, I would put it this way: if there is a company which has about 1,000 employees, and everyone is working in their respective departments, if one of them is tested COVID positive, apparently without a tech solution, the SOP would be either shutting down the entire company, or doing a very large putting very large number of people to isolation, putting very large number of people to quarantine. What this application does is, if this application is in place in this company and someone is tested positive, it will give the management and administration an accurate account of interactions which the infected person have had in the company in past 14 days, 15 days, 20 days, whatever number of days is required. So what the administration and management can do is primarily isolate those number of people and look out for secondary contacts. So rather than cutting 600 people off the work floor, it will come down to isolating a fraction of 60, 70, 80, 100 people, resulting in so that is how it works.
So basically, if I can summarize, what you're saying is enterprises or companies, they can still make use of the solution which your organization Globekeeper is offering, so that they can better track COVID spread in the organization, and perhaps they could narrow down the infected people, or the people who might possibly
exactly.
They can narrow down the filtration process.
Exactly. Rather than cutting the hand off, they can just ampute the finger and let the show go on.
True. That's great. That's great. All right. All right. So I think those were pretty much most of the questions I have. Now I would like to go. I would like to conclude this webinar. So, Mr. Gaurav, would you like to give any concluding remarks to the audience, please?
All I would like to say is that these are unprecedented times. We ourselves are not sure what is in store for us in coming few days. A lot of movement of skilled manpower has happened across borders. Now, what Assam government is right now trying to do is they're trying to map the skills of these people and trying to raise them so that we don't have a section of population which is dependent on the state, rather than they are also contributing factors. I think this will be a problem in a lot of other states also, where a lot of migrant workers have left and come to their native places. Once the economic activities open up, and once the relaxations are more, once the work starts, that is one situation we all should start bracing for, as to how you are going to fill the vacuum of the moved migrant laborers. And I think there will be reverse migration once things get better. I like to say at the end is this pandemic situation has uh, has its own positives also. It's not entirely gloomy or what do you say, depressed kind of a situation. It has come out with a lot of positives. It has brought the countries together. It has brought the society together. The entire landscape of this country, while fighting this COVID kind of a situation, has shown its resilience. And I'm sure with the active participation of the citizens and the sensitivity and the proactiveness of the government, and with the active participation of private players like Mr. Suraj's company or your company, and likewise a lot of important stakeholders. Once the entire ecosystem falls in place, I think we will certainly emerge out of this situation, and we are going to come out more strong and in a much better manner. So that is what my hope is, and that is what I think should happen very soon.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Mr. Gaurav. Mr. Suraj, would you like to add concluding remarks, please?
Certainly, sir. As I said, rather, let us start thinking of a post-COVID world. Let us start thinking of the opportunities this chaos may bring along. And I strongly believe that nothing is gone, everything is there. My house is still there, my office is still there. It is not, I mean, it is not a situation when where there is mass destruction. There is discontinuity, but there is no mass destruction. Everything stands in place.
Mhm.
So I don't think we should be thinking of we should not be thinking of any gloomy times ahead. We should just roll our sleeves up and act like the Europeans must have acted post World War II. So
Mhm.
it is a new order, new opportunities, new times, new challenges. Let us all be zealous, be energetic, and let us just head on to the new challenges. And I'm
True.
certain we will get a lot of opportunities. The kind of FDI India got in this lockdown, it is in this, in this so glue. From an entrepreneur's point of view, it is laces tight. Let us kick the ball as hard as we can, and in no time we'll overcome this situation.
True, true. Basically, what you're saying that since this crisis is resetting nearly all the prior business norms, resetting all the rules, it is high time for the startups to come up with as innovative solutions as possible, because it is resetting the history of bigger organizations. So it is the best time that any entrepreneur can come up with an innovative solution and maybe sweep the world, right?
Exactly. Come with it now. Do it for Christmas. Don't wait for that golden day when there will be very bright sunrise and you will come and someone will come up with a solution. Do it now. If it is going to fail, let it fail now. Try again now. Just do it. Don't wait for anything. Just roll your sleeves. Go ahead. Get going.
True. Got it. Got it. All right. I think that is, all I have, all the questions I had
Now
for
is
Ms.
the time.
God. Yeah. So I think that is all. That those were all the questions I had for Mr. Gaurav and Mr. Suraj today. Thank you very much, Mr. Gaurav and Mr. Suraj, for your valuable insight and time. It was great to have you today. I wish both of you best of luck for your future, and I wish that you will continue to help mankind in various possible ways as per your respective fields and expertise. I thank you once again.
On an ending note, I would just like to add something. as employers, as employees,
Mhm.
going forward, if we think about creating employment in whatever manner we can,
Mhm.
that will be the biggest contribution we can do post pandemic, and that will be the biggest game changer for our country. So
True.
let us at least pledge or think about creating one new employment, either in our homes or in our organizations or in our societies, wherever we can. Just let us pledge to create one new employment.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Suraj.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Gaurav, once again. Uh,
Thank
uh,
you, Mr. Vikram. The pleasure was entirely ours.
uh, Thank you, Mr. Gaurav, once again. So now I would like to go back to audience. Like after this session, it is indeed crystal clear that both administration as well as technologists are trying their best to control COVID-19 crisis. You know, at times, a common person, such as a student or a professional or a business owner, they may get directly impacted by this crisis. So they may start complaining at times, right? And they may not be totally wrong, but they need to understand that, you know, this crisis is unprecedented, and hence any solution which either an administration will take or technologists will provide, it will take some time before it starts giving better results. You know, I agree that economy is shaken, and more than that, we all are personally shaken, right? But we can only win this battle by being stronger and adopting technology solutions, because it is the only option right now. There is no other option. In today's world, uh, artificial intelligence and machine learning backed solutions will be the savior of the life and livelihood of mankind on this planet. You know, I personally believe that anything which is invented or introduced naturally through evolution is right. AI and ML, which are emerging technologies, are nothing but evolved forms of prior technical solutions, which came naturally to us, and hence they are right too. You know, people who believe that AI and ML solutions will increase job cuts and will affect humankind negatively, they need to rethink. Yes, I agree that AI-backed solutions needs to be regulated properly to prevent any kind of adverse impact on humankind. In short, it is time for all of us, to support the administration in best possible form we can, to adopt technology and to embrace the new normal, because the new normal comes up with a lot more new opportunities, right? Please think about this point, and you know, we will upload the recording of this webinar on YouTube, and we'll share it with all the people who registered with us. So please share your feedback and comments on our YouTube channel once you get the link. On that note, I would like to close today's webinar. However, in the end, I would once again welcome Mr. Gaurav and Mr. Suraj for joining this event. It was simply great.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you, and thank you very much to the audience. Thank you very much.